And then something happens. You can see the embryos starting to develop, and you can see the little black dots and the individual eggs within that mass. And then it starts getting green. It turns green all around those eggs. And I was like, what is happening here? With the northwestern salamander, somehow there's a type of algae that has learned to colonize the egg masses.
That is my incredibly knowledgeable guest this week, Lynne Brooks. I'm Taryn Picard, and this is What About the Wetlands, a podcast where we talk all about wetlands on Vancouver Island. This week we get into flora and fauna and a bunch of other cool biology stuff. We talk to Lynne about her experiences around the world working with wetlands, and we also discuss how we can get involved in order to make sure that wetlands are preserved for a long, long time. Every time I have a chance to talk to Lynne, it is such a delight, and I hope you enjoy watching this conversation as much as I enjoyed being a part of it.
I'm Lynne Brooks, and I live here in Arrington, BC, on Vancouver Island. My husband and I moved here about 15 years ago. As far as my background, I have always loved being out in nature. I was one of those wild kids that was allowed to go everywhere and explore deserts and mountainsides and beaches and you name it. And during that time, I really fell in love with wetlands because they're just absolutely amazing for many things that I'll be mentioning later. I've got a PhD in environmental education. I started out in biology and realized that ecology was really where my heart was, and that led me further on. And then also I wanted to share the information that I was learning with other people, so I really followed that track of going into the educational area, all about the environment. And I'm still doing it today, and one day when I retire from retirement, I'm going to write a book.
Love it. Oh, that's so good. I love talking to teachers because you're just like so good at explaining things that are complicated, but like in a way that's so accessible to everyone. And it's a great skill that I wish I had better. So I appreciate that.
Well, I think what you folks are doing is so important because you're recording people that can explain that, and then you can share what they know with so many others.
Yeah, true.
I also might mention that I'm also with the Aerosmith Naturalists, one of 55 BC nature clubs here in our province. And I'm also on the board of directors at the North Island Wildlife Recovery Center, which is another place which keeps us all close to wildlife, a great place to take critters that get injured or wounded or sick. And also a big part of our mission is education about how to prevent wildlife from being injured or poisoned, or what the different trouble that they run into, how to prevent that, because prevention, as we all know, is worth a lot. I love wetlands, and I look forward to talking about them.
So the first question I've been asking everybody is, what is your definition of wetlands?
Well, wetlands, there's the technical definition, and then there's the philosophical definition. The technical one is that they're areas of land that are either partially or totally submerged during most or part of the year. And that creates a whole different kind of array of habitats, whether it's shallow water or just mud, whether it dries out in the summer, whether it's wet year-round with a pond on it or a lake. So wetlands have many different aspects. You've got fens and bogs and swamps and marshes. They each have their own particular characteristics, and they're all fascinating. Now, another way of looking at them is they're mysterious, they're exciting. You can slip and fall. You can find incredible flowers like the little calypso orchids that you would never see anywhere else. You've got all kinds of life and death going on around in the trees above, in the water below, and along the shores. So it's a fascinating place where one can spend hours just exploring and looking and learning and listening. Birds use it, frogs use the wetlands. There are all kinds of different trees. Humans have used wetlands forever, for millennia, for all the different resources that are there also. So wetlands are complex, they're fun, they can be dangerous if you're not careful and use your head, and they're a source of food and materials that humans have used since time immemorial.
It's kind of funny because I interviewed a bunch of kids this morning talking about Hamilton Marsh, and I asked them what their most memorable story was about being at Hamilton Marsh, and two of them shared the same story of some kid accidentally falling off the dock into the marsh and just getting covered in mud.
Oh my gosh.
Dangerous
yes.
place, but apparently it's funny, so I mean.
Well, dangerous in the sense that, one can slip, you can trip. There also are bears that habit wetlands because of all the rich food sources there. Cougars pass through, wolves pass through. Happily, we have no poisonous snakes here on Vancouver Island, but in some countries and areas, the wetlands can have some pretty interesting critters that are out there that can be dangerous. So, and part of that's the allure, the exploring, and most children love to explore, and most adults do too. Sometimes they've forgotten to, but when they get into marsh areas and start learning about them, that desire comes out again to understand and to explore and see what's there.
Yeah, and there's so many layers to a marsh, hey? Like you look at it and it seems like it's just a weird kind of like body of water, maybe with some plants, but then you start looking at it deeper and it's like incredible how much is going on in such a calm looking space.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people don't really know that much about plants, and they go into a wetland or a meadow or any place, and it's just a wall of green, and they don't really recognize. It's kind of like when you go into a crowd or you're in some kind of a huge event and there are all these people around and you don't know anybody, it's just kind of a mass. But then when you start knowing people or you're there with friends, oh, that's Fred and that's Sally and there's Rosemary and there's Jim, and then all of a sudden you're connecting. And so when people start learning, oh, okay, that's a red alder. Oh, wow, big leaf maple. I can see why it's got that name. Or maybe it's a Sitka spruce. Wow, those are pretty impressive. So that when people start learning the names of humans are really into naming things. And when we have a name for something, we can connect with it better. So that's why it's important to get out there and start learning about what you're seeing, not just because then you'll start recognizing, whoa, Nootka rose, look at the beautiful hips that are on them. That is the rose hips. And then dogwood, like I see over here, beautiful color and the wine color now in the fall. And the different sedges and the cattails and the bulrushes, they're each different and they each provide some kind of a service to wildlife. Bulrushes, for example, produce big patches of them, hundreds, thousands to millions of seeds, and especially important for migrating birds as they go through. The seeds of bulrushes are very important. And cattails. The cattails, they're the ones with the little knob that sticks up high. If you had a cat with a tail like that, you'd worry about it, but they've got the name cattail. But those cattails form during the late summer and the fall, and they sit there till the spring. And then they soften up, release their seeds, which float on the wind and land in hopefully a wetland area, and they can start life anew. But critters can use that, like hummingbirds, for example, will take the fluff right out of the cattail in the early spring and use it to line their nest, to soften up the edges. And First Nations people could use it for padding by stuffing that into, between layers of cloth. And so you start learning about some of those things, and it makes it more interesting, and you can connect more with them.
Wealth of knowledge. I just love it.
And I don't know if you were interested, you had mentioned something about fauna and flora.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All of it.
All right.
Anything to do with wetlands we're interested in here, and especially like anything, like the more passionate you are about it, the more other people are going to be interested in it too, right? So I love to just let my guests kind of like talk about whatever they want to talk about to do with wetlands, because the more connected you are to it, the more connected other people are going to become to it too.
Alrighty. Well, maybe one thing that would be interesting to people would be about some of the plants and then also some of the animals that are associated with wetlands. In the plant category, wow, there's so many, but one that I think of right off the bat is the wapato, or the arrowroot. And it's an edible, it has a corm, like a bulb down in the water that is a food source, and the First Nations used it for that. And then you've got other plants like bladderwort, which is pretty wild. It's a carnivorous plant. And it's an amazing little plant where it's got little tiny, they look like little round things, dark things along the stem. It's a floating plant in the water. And when a little insect or something swims by, it opens quickly. It's like a spring trap, and when it opens, it sucks in the water and the bug and closes on it, and then digests it. So that's bladderwort, and it's just an innocuous looking little pond plant, and there you go.
It's like a trapdoor spider, but it's a plant instead.
And then there are other plants that are along the shores or in the wetland areas close to them. And I think I mentioned earlier about cattails and bulrushes and their importance. But also you've got plants like the swamp lantern, and the name for that has been always skunk cabbage, because it does have a bit of a waft of skunk. But really the bright yellow calyx that's there, the hood around the flower in a dark wooded area, a swampy area, I thought swamp lantern sounds like a really good name for that. But they have an important use for bears. The black bears will hibernate for many, many months over the winter, and they don't eat, they don't poop, they don't do anything. Well, in the spring when they come out, they're feeling a little crabby but they'll go over and they'll find some of the swamp lanterns or skunk cabbage, dig them up and eat them, and it serves as a laxative. And it clears them out, and then off they go, happier bear looking for something else to eat. And other plants like the calypso lily, calypso orchid is just a beautiful plant that grows along near wet shaded areas, the same as trillium. You see the trilliums, and sometimes people see a trillium and it's white, another white one, but then there's a pink one. They go, oh, there's a pink one. Well, actually it's just a mature, now getting rid of the white color and fading into darkness to protect the seeds that are being formed. That's also a trillium that's at the end of the flower end of its lifespan, so to speak, the petals. When they're bright white, they're trying to attract insects to get pollinated, but once they're pollinated, they don't want to attract insects to the plant because they're forming the seeds. So the trillium is kind of a neat plant, and they get the bigger and larger they are, the older they are. It takes years for them to develop.
I wondered why that was. Yeah, because you'll find a trillium that's like, we've got some in the back field here that are like a couple inches, and then you've like huge ones.
Oh, they're great big ones with the leaves, but it's just age. The bigger they are and the bigger the bulb, the more they can support foliage up above.
Cool.
And other plants that grow close to the wetland areas are salmonberry, for example. And the salmonberry is a great plant for pollinators. They have the magenta flowers in the early spring, and the hummingbirds go right to them. And then afterward, the berries form during the summer. And the berries are really an important food for First Nations, and because they have good flavor, and they would mix them in with less tasty berries like salal berries and thimbleberry and other berries, and they'd dry them into cakes that could store all winter and could be used for eating or also for trade. But salmonberry was important for that. And so those are just some of the plants. There's so many different ones. Some plants like alders and like cottonwoods can live when there's a lot of water. In fact, cottonwoods like growing right with at least some of the roots in water, not deep, but nice and wet and soaking it up. So another thing that is always of interest to people are animals, and the denizens of the wetland areas are many and really cool. Some of them, like the frogs, of course, everybody loves. Who doesn't love a frog? I mean, they're pretty darn cute. And we've got two native frogs here. We've got the Pacific tree frog, and we have the red-legged frog. And the little tree frogs come in many colors. It's interesting. They're the basic green, but they also can come with gold markings on them, and green and white and brown and different patterns. They're called tree frogs because when they emerge and go onto the land in the fall, they literally live on the land, and they will climb up into trees and shrubbery. When winter comes, they hide under bark or underneath fallen logs or something, and that's where they hang out over winter. Then in the spring, and you can hear the male tree frogs just calling their little hearts out, singing away, and frog song is just beautiful to listen to, and that attracts in the females. He who sings the loudest and best, I guess, attracts more females, I'm not sure. But the little tree frogs are pretty darn cute. The red-legged frog is an endangered frog. We have found them. They're on a number of places at Hamilton Marsh, over at the French Creek Estuary Nature Preserve, and a number of other places. You'll see red-legged frogs, but they're having a hard time. A lot of animals are having a hard time because a lot of wetlands are disappearing. They're getting paved over, built over, whatever, and a lot of the services they provide for the ecosystem and for people are being diminished. That's why it's so important to protect and save what wetlands we have left. Well, other creatures around the wetlands are, you'll see mink and raccoons, Beavers, my goodness, beavers, when they were in the, hundreds of millions here all over Canada, they would have changed the landscape. It would have looked quite different than it does today. The beavers are driven mad by the sound of running water. And what happens when they hear the running water, they want to plug it up and stop it and make it quiet. That's in their nature. So there would be lots and lots of ponds all over the place, small ponds, big ponds, where the beaver would have been hanging out. Humans haven't liked it when a lot of times when they'll build a pond, it might flood an area. And unfortunately, people were shooting beavers and trapping beaver to get rid of them. This is in the last, and then somebody figured out, well, duh, it's the sound of running water that makes beavers build the dam. So what you do is you put a baffle into the dam and down where the water will still flow down and trickle out below in a stream, where the beaver don't hear the running water and they stop building on the dam. And so you can control the height of a dam by using our, the human brain. And that way, that saved a lot of beavers, and it's an easy fix. Over at Moorcroft, you can see a beaver baffle there in the pond that they have on that property.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so it's neat.
I'll have to look for that.
Yeah, it's as you go up, there is a big pond, and just look. If you're facing the pond, then towards the road, you'll see the white pipe, just a PVC pipe that goes right down through the. Yeah.
I think I know exactly the one you're talking about. I didn't realize that was the purpose of it.
Yeah, they ought to have a sign.
We're in a cow field. There's a lot of flies. I unfortunately was laughing at Siska for a second there, our camera lady, because she had a moth come and land on her eyebrow. Apparently you look like, I don't know, a flower? I don't know.
Well, biodiversity.
Yeah, we're pretty close to a couple of like small wetland areas. So
yes,
it makes sense.
Well, happily they're leaving me alone so far. So thank you too. You're getting
you're welcome. Like, wearing the bright white shirt probably was not the smartest idea for the flies, but anyway. It's good to see bugs around, that's for sure.
Well, one thing that just came to mind was when I was working in Peru. I was living in Peru for 3 years, in Arequipa, and I was teaching at a university there. And
I love Arequipa.
I had
such a beautiful city.
Have you been there?
Yeah,
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah,
it's great, man. I was there for 3 years. It was cool. Got horses, rode around.
Nice.
Anyway, so one of my classes was ecology, and so and I was teaching biology, ecology, and genetics for the 3 years I was there, and all of my students were going to become teachers, and I learned real quickly that they really didn't know much about animals and about wildlife and about wetland areas at all. In fact, they were afraid of everything. Snakes, frogs, all these things that so I thought, well, this isn't going to work. I said, okay, we're going to go on a field trip. And it was kind of, a what? We're going out in the field. And we were able to get hold of a bus, and on we went out to a creek and a stream. And a creek area that flowed into a larger stream, and there were wetlands around there. And as we walked along looking, just seeing what was there, a frog jumped out of the grass, and I grabbed it real quick, and people jumped back kind of in horror, and they said, oh, they're all poisonous. No, I don't think so. No, they're not poisonous. And it was great because I was the lowest of the low. I was a foreigner, I was a woman, I was young, but then the guys had to handle a frog if I was doing it. So I learned that machismo was a terrific teaching methodology. So, and then when the guys took the frog and held it, I told them, get your hands wet and then hold it gently. And then the young women, the girls, also wanted to hold it. So it like broke the ice, and it's amazing because things really changed after that. And then we got to see snakes, and then I had them study a plot a meter by a meter for half an hour to record everything they saw, and they were looking at and they were blown away about how much is actually there when you actually spend the time looking and observing things. So that was kind of fun. And then I think it gave them a different perspective on creeks, streams, wildlife in general. Another place, I was in Costa Rica, and I was there to evaluate a program that some teachers had done. And we went out, they wanted to show me the different creeks and rivers and such they'd worked with. And we started out this tour, and we stood at a bridge looking at a river, and they said, do you know what that is? And I said, it's a river, a small river. And they go, that's a trash can. Everybody throws their basura, their trash, in the creeks, in the rivers. And that's what they're used for, is to carry all this stuff away. And that's what they've been fighting about for years. I mean, not fighting, but trying to educate the children and also the parents that this is a place to protect, that there's a lot of wildlife here, that it's important, their own drinking water, you know, for all the different reasons. And I thought that was really neat, because here these people were showing me what they recognized already and knew and what they'd been doing about it. And they had signs that the kids put together, you know, frogs live here, and the trash is yours, not theirs, and different signs here and there to remind people not to be dumping cars and old bicycles and everything else. So that was kind of a fun thing to see. The teachers were really passionate about it, and that really made a difference for the kids, which again, the kids have parents and everybody connects. So that was an interesting one. Well, here about 5 years ago, there was an organization that put on a wetlands workshop, and that was a 3-day workshop, and that was really fascinating. The BC Wildlife Federation, I believe, put that on, and they had us come out and actually look at peat in the soil, in the water, and seeing what that was like, learning about the wetlands, and a lot of people, the classes were full. And it was put on, 2 of the organizations here, the stewardship organizations, asked them to come and do the program, so they did. And that was very interesting. And just in my own life, I've always had a pond or built some kind of a thing, even as a kid, where I had with a hose and then had a little waterfall going into the pond, and just watching the life that's attracted to water. All the birds that come to drink water, the squirrels that come down, the raccoons that mess things up. And they're always a source of interest and a lot of enjoyment. Presently, I'm working on restoration of an area at the French Creek Estuary Nature Preserve, where there had been a home site. It's now gone. And there is a pond on site that's probably about 45 years old or so. It was originally a gravel quarry, so the sides are very steep on this pond, an unnatural steepness. And some of it has the whole pond is naturalized now. It's healthy, it's in great shape and good condition, but there's an area, the section near where the home site was, it's just a straight drop down. And we're going to be doing what's called resloping the pond edge. So instead of a vertical drop, there will be a 20-degree slope so that critters can get in and out much more easily, a more natural slope. So we're going to be doing that. And so planning on that, you know, the engineering and the measuring and the making sure you're not going to cause any problems, the right window, time of year to do it. And there's a lot of science behind all this. And so after the pond is properly resloped, then we're going to be replanting that area. And it's an interesting area because the first 2 meters will be underwater 6 months more or less out of the year. The next 2 meters might get flooded periodically, and the third section, another 8 meters back there, will be just bone dry and hot as can be in the full sun. So figuring out the planting plan, what will work, what may or may not survive in this and that situation. And we've had great advice from an RP bio and also from a herpetologist who's familiar with the frogs and such and the amphibians that are there. So that will be very interesting to get that done and improve it and create more habitat where there was nothing but just bare gravelly cobble, and that was it.
Right.
And now we'll turn it into something that will be useful for wildlife and really attractive for people coming through to enjoy it.
So is that the pond where when you walk into that area, there was I think it was like the yellow lilies or something?
Yeah, there's some yellow flag iris that's
those
there.
Those ones, yes.
Yeah, and those are evil characters. They're like the Scotch broom of water.
Oh, yeah.
And they're quite difficult to get rid of. There's quite a procedure to get rid of them. It can take a couple of years of time before they finally give up the ghost.
But it is possible.
Oh, yes, it is.
Oh,
but you have to follow a certain protocol because any pieces that break off and float away, they'll start growing again.
No.
So people that have just gone in and dug things up and thrown it aside end up with 20.
No, yeah, they actually spread
Yeah,
them.
rather than the one. So,
Oh, no.
so there's a good protocol, and then we'll certainly be following that, where you carefully remove a section and then completely use a covering over it. So you just starve the whatever might be left of any light. No
Right.
photosynthesis, no food for the plant, no growth. It dies.
Huh.
So yeah, I'll let you know. Stay tuned in a couple of years,
Yeah.
because we have a couple of them to get rid of out there. Because one thing I meant to mention about the critters in the water is the northwest salamander. There's a really neat story with that one.
I think it was. Do we just have one species of salamander here? Or do we have more than one?
Oh no, we have many. We've got probably at least 5.
I saw one on the trail today at Hamilton Marsh. I
Was-
don't know what kind it was.
Was it brown color?
Yeah.
That's because they're the most common. Those are the rough-skinned newt.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they are. And if you disturb them, they'll raise their tail up and they try to look ferocious and scare you away. Whoa, and there's the dragonfly, speak of.
Nice.
Yeah, but also, I doubt you'd ever lick them, but they are poisonous, so it's not good to.
Darn. Well, that was my plan. I was going to pick it up and lick it. I was hungry, but good thing I didn't. Refrained. I can't remember. I think it's slugs or something. I remember as a kid being on Hornby and like on a field trip camping, and one of the guides told us something about like how you could lick a slug or something, and I don't know if it like made people high or just made their tongues tingly.
They probably were
or something.
high before they licked it.
Yeah, like what makes you want to lick a slug? Where does that come from? Where does that thought process come from? I don't know.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just bored. It's just a Tuesday. I got nothing better to do. I might as well lick a slug. I don't know.
Gosh.
Yeah. Strange. Anyway. So it sounds like you've been like pretty much all over the world seeing wetlands.
Well, I mean, I've mainly Latin America. I've been to
Okay.
Europe and such, but that was more just
Just for
like
fun.
the antiquities and all.
Yeah.
But and it's wetlands and it's everything else. It's not wetlands are a part of the whole bigger system, and you've got a healthy ecosystem if it's got some of everything. But in the Grand Canyon, for example, there are amazing little wet spots there and wetland areas down in there that one wouldn't even be aware of. They're just pockets, small pockets and large areas. In our own area, we've got, there's Dudley Marsh that was protected.
Yeah, just down the road here.
And there's Hamilton Marsh that folks are pretty much aware of, the nature preserve, the Parksville Wetlands, and also at Laburnum in Qualicum Beach. And fortunately, governments are understanding and realizing how incredibly important wetlands are. Let's take Hamilton Marsh, for example. It's 360 hectares of forested wetlands. There's an enormous big marsh right on one corner of it. It's 36 hectares, and wetlands serve to purify water. They store water. They slowly release it during the summer. They also prevent floods because they can absorb a tremendous amount of water that would otherwise maybe just go rushing down to the sea or rushing over somebody's property. But they hold the water, store it, and then out it goes slowly during the hot, dry summer months. That's a huge service. For wildlife, they provide all kinds of habitat. The edge habitats, the water habitat itself. We've got trees that grow all around. And the wildlife that's attracted to that are woodpeckers. Say there's a dead, dying tree. Woodpeckers, part of their courtship behavior is they'll excavate a new nesting cavity every year. They never use that cavity again.
No way.
So when you think of a big bird like a pileated, the two of them build their nest cavity one year and then move on the following year. There's this nice cavity. It's just like finding housing on Vancouver Island in general is pretty difficult. The housing's at a premium. And so ducks like wood ducks, for example, and others will use the cavity. Also, owls can use that cavity. Bats can use the cavity. And so again, having the big old trees near a wetland area with cavities in it provides housing for all kinds of other creatures that are really important. And that's a real value. Another thing that I wanted to mention about some critters, but this is an aquatic and terrestrial one. It's called the northwestern salamander. And the northwestern salamander, little skinny guy, they have a fascinating thing that happens during their life cycle. When the eggs are laid, and if you think, how can a little skinny salamander produce a big egg mass about that big? It's like, whoa, how did that happen? It's because, like starch or something, if you add water to it, it will swell up. Wow.
Oh, hello,
That's
dragonfly.
great. It looks like
Do
a
you see
pond
that in-
hawk. That's amazing. Wow. Anyway, so the egg mass will swell up, and so you've got all these little eggs surrounded by this gelatinous mass. And then something happens. You can see the embryos starting to develop, and you can see the little black dots and the individual eggs within that mass. And then it starts getting green. It turns green all around those eggs. And I was like, what is happening here? With the northwestern salamander, somehow there's a type of algae that has learned to colonize the egg masses. And the algae colonizes the egg mass using the nitrogenous waste material that the developing embryos produce. And the embryos use the oxygen, which is a waste material of photosynthesis. So the little embryos get the oxygen from the algae, and the algae gets the nitrogenous fertilizer from the little embryos. And everybody's happy, and then when the little guys finally hatch and emerge, they each go their own way, and all starts over again next year with another batch. Isn't that amazing?
So cool.
How did that happen? It's
Yeah.
just, that's really incredible.
That's way
Anyway.
cooler than licking slugs.
What beats that?
Very useful.
Oh my goodness.
That's so cool.
And dragonflies. There have been a couple here, one that landed on your sweater, a blue one that's been zipping around here, have fascinated people forever. Think of all the dragonfly art and earrings and paintings and everything else. And they've often been used as a symbol of life after death. I mean, they'll lay their eggs, depending which species of dragonfly during what time of year. But they'll lay their eggs, and it could be in plant stems, it could be flicked off into the mud, they could be inserted into damp wood next to a wetland. Different species have different strategies. And the babies then, the larvae, the eggs hatch, and the larvae, called nymphs, swim around for, depending on the species, for less than a year or more than a year, depending. Some of the cold water species up high in the mountains, it takes a couple of years to eat enough food to grow enough to then emerge and become an adult. But the dragonflies are so beautiful and colorful and popular. I've never met anyone that hasn't liked them. But when they emerge, they come out of their nymphal stage. They literally climb out of their skin. They go up a cattail or a bulrush, and they climb out into the air, usually at night. And they've got fully formed little wing packets on each shoulder. They've got 4 wings. And as they're up in the air and they're moving around and walking, their bug blood gets going and gets pumping, and it goes into the veins that are you've seen dragonfly wing veins. Well, the bug blood goes into the veins, and that's what stretches them out. And when they're fully stretched out, all the veins are full of the material, it solidifies. And that's what gives them their maneuverability and the strength. It's just the solidified blood, and it's amazing. The rest of their blood just keeps going in their body and does their thing. And that structure, that lightweight, very fine structure, is something that some of the people that develop planes have really studied that, to see how you can get the lightweight, high tensile sort of material, how you can imitate that.
So they're trying to figure out how to make oil solidify to give it rigidity?
Well, yeah, more types of minimal is rather than lots and lots of stuff, because lightweight for anything, birds, planes, dragonflies, weight is the big factor. That's why all of us who jumped off bunk beds when we were kids crashed. we weren't aware of that. I remember my brother putting a cape on and taking a dive. And didn't work.
Make it, hey? Wasn't a dragonfly that day?
It wasn't a dragonfly.
Darn it.
Oh, goodness.
That's hilarious.
So, well, another thing I highly recommend for anybody, especially in the late spring, late winter, early spring, is to go out at night to a wetland area and just listen. The sounds are amazing. The frog song will be the first thing that you hear. And then if you listen and stay for a while, and any time of year actually, but especially the spring, you might hear barred owls or great horned owls calling, courtship calling. Everybody's pretty noisy at that point in time, trying to attract mates and such. And if you can just be in a chair with a blanket, if it's cold, and just sit there, just spend like at least half an hour just being quiet and just listening and hearing the wind and smelling the smells and listening to all the different sounds. And there aren't that many mosquitoes out yet, which makes
helps,
it more
yeah.
comfortable. And so,
Yeah, it's really cool, this forest that's back here. It's got a bunch of like mineral pools in it, and where I don't know if you can see, there's like cows standing essentially in water. It's kind of like a ditch that's become a pond slash kind of like wetland area. And then the forest right behind that fills with a lot of water. So this forest will get so loud with frogs that like with the windows closed in the house, you have to like yell at each other.
isn't
Yeah,
that something?
it's crazy. And then you'll also hear the barred owls in there too, pretty much all year round actually. Yeah, it's incredible. It's like, I think early June usually is when you hear them. So out of all the wetlands that you've seen, this is going to be a very difficult question. I apologize ahead of time. Out of all the like wetland stuff that you've seen, all the countries you've been to see wetlands, what is the coolest thing in your opinion that you've seen in all those experiences? I told you it was a tough question.
Yeah, well, one of the coolest was like the Okefenokee swamp down in southern U.S.
Okay.
Okefenokee, it's unbelievable. Huge old swamp cypresses. They actually put up, you've got this huge big tree, and they put up these what are called cypress knees. They're structures that allow them to get more oxygen from the air, because roots need oxygen. And so they actually grow these growths that stand up, called cypress knees, that they can get oxygen to the root through that.
Oh, cool.
And that was really neat. And in the evening, with the sun behind and these huge old trees and a swamp with all these different noises. And a swamp is a wetland area that has lots of trees in it and lots of water. And that was pretty amazing. And so that really made an impression. Other wetland areas, I mean, I can think of places that had a lot of mist. I'm thinking of Monteverde. There were lots of wet areas. During the winter, you had to wear gumboots. It was the only way to travel around. But again, there were all kinds of snakes and frogs and all sorts of life. But being in a wetland area with mist, where it's cool, with cool temperature, that was also pretty impressive. And I think then other places I think that are amazing are ones that the people are putting a lot of effort and thought into restoring them and improving them, because people that know wetland areas can see what it should look like and what it could look like. And when there are donors, funders, different organizations or municipalities that recognize they have something of great value and that it can be restored back to a really productive system for water for the local citizens and the population and such, but also for the wildlife and for recreation, for people to go through, designated trails. If you trample all over, if you have a garden, so to speak, if people were allowed to run around and ride bicycles and trample all over your garden, it's going to be shot. Same thing with a wetland restoration project. There need to be specific trails so people can enjoy it and see it, but not damage what they're coming actually to go look and see. And Parksville has begun some restoration work with the Parksville wetlands, and at the Nature Preserve, we're certainly working with that, getting that squared away. And it's only a good thing because, again, we've lost, like Pheasant Glen. I don't know if you're aware of Pheasant Glen in Qualicum Beach.
Right, yeah.
That area, that was the Big Hamilton Marsh.
Okay.
And it's gone. It's all been developed. And there were records. I read an article where some researchers had gone out to look at amphibian mortality, and there were hundreds of thousands of amphibians over the years that were getting squashed on the new Highway 4 that goes along the Pheasant Glen down towards Qualicum Beach, Memorial Road. So that's something and they recommended that there be like tunnels put underneath, safe passages, and it never happened. But the ones that made it got over to Hamilton Marsh. That's there now. But that would be something that we're looking at, that we can maybe get a frog tunnel to go underneath, say, Slaney Road and South Hilliers Road. But that takes research of people going out and checking to see how many there are and where they are and such. But so it's good. The really good news is there has been a lot of recognition now, finally, that wetlands are not places to be bulldozed over or build garbage dumps on or drain for whatever. They are in their own right really important to our water table, our purifying water, storing water, letting it out into creeks. Like French Creek does not receive any snow melt. It's all rainfall.
Okay.
So wetlands are extremely important in the French Creek watershed, which is the most threatened, most stressed watershed in our area, is to protect the wetlands that remain, because otherwise the whole French Creek area watershed could get extremely dry and not be very productive for people that are using wells and for wildlife.
Right.
So that's important. That recognition is there. Now it's a matter of protecting those wetlands.
Right.
That's really key to it.
So is there anything in particular that you've seen that gets people involved and wanting to protect wetlands? Like, is there any strategies that you've seen implemented that really help to kind of gain that public support and understanding for moving that forward?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. There are organizations that are focused entirely on wetlands. The one that produced that program I was talking about with the wetland studies. Also, organizations, other groups like the MIVIS, the Mid-Vancouver Island Habitat Enhancement Society. They're really involved with wetland restoration, and stream keepers, Qualicum Beach stream keepers. And the Aerosmith naturalists have been involved with quite a lot of research to better understand the wildlife and plants that inhabit various wetland areas. I think having tours like the Hamilton Marsh tour that's gone on forever, for many years, gets people out there to see them. I think once people come, they're blown away and they really like wetlands and enjoy it. It's a matter of getting people that one step to get out there and actually see it. Once you see it, you can't forget it, and people really like it, really enjoy it. Programs, I mean, David Suzuki, there have been all kinds of programs that people can watch about wetlands and their wonders, but there's nothing that beats actually physically going to a site and looking at it. That's key. So then it's a matter of how do you get people motivated. And kids are so important. The Hamilton Marsh has always brought kids down. The school up there they use that as a campus trip. They go several times a week sometimes, going out and looking at the wetlands. So those kids all will get it. They'll understand. So just more of all of that. The more the merrier.
Fair.
And the Parksville Wetlands, it's got trails through it. A lot of people go there. Maybe more educational signage. That's always something that helps, because people can't be there. We all have our lives and we're doing a gazillion things as it is. But if you have really nice signage that explains what that is, what the pond does, what kinds of creatures live there, maybe labeling some of the plants along the way and what they do, their First Nations usage or wildlife usage or both.
Right,
So all of that helps, because there are a lot of walkers. So, there are people that walk here a lot, and signs are nice.
Yeah.
They help.
Yeah, and there's not really, it's harder to find the avenues to learn about things like that. You don't know what you don't know until you know it, right? So.
Well, we try. I mean, there are about 17 stewardship groups just in our area, right here in the Parksville, Qualicum Beach. The Aerosmith Naturalists, the MIVIS, the Friends of French Creek, the Hamilton Wetlands and Forest Society, and I mean, you name it, Qualicum Beach Stream Keepers. So we're there. We go to all kinds of events. It is interesting because we'll spend 2 or 3 hours there, but maybe only 20 or 30 people come by. So it's a matter of, and then when people come, they see what all is going on. And our group has grown a lot just because of that. There are a lot of people that are concerned about biodiversity loss. It's epic. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's terrifying, actually. But that, and also the whole thing of climate change and the warming, that is a real problem. But rather than sitting around and wringing your hands or crying, which just messes up your face, there's so many things going out there to help counteract that.
Right.
You know, we're doing watering of plants. We planted 385 shrubs and trees last year at the Nature Preserve. And for 2 summers now, volunteers have gone out once a week and they've watered all 385 plants. They have it down to an art. It takes an hour and a half to water all those plants.
That's not bad at all.
No, not at all. We've got the person who fills the watering cans, and then 2 people are the runners. They run the full cans over, hand them over the fence to the people that water, and they get the empties, run back, fill them up. It's a process,
So
and it's fun.
You get your cardio in
And it's
too.
a social, exactly. You get your cardio, you get exercise. It's social. I mean, it's fun. It's all people are laughing, messing around, whatever, and it gets done. And a lot of people have come, and they really enjoyed doing something. Planting, all 385 of those plants were planted by people, volunteers. They came out and did it. And other activities are not wetland directly related, perhaps, but also including wetlands, are surveys of birds. Where are the birds hanging out? We've got apps like iNaturalist where people can identify and locate where they are. Governments don't seem to have enough funding to have basic research to find out where the most biodiverse areas are. And if the general public can get out and take pictures and send it to iNaturalist, then you start building a case for, wow, there's a lot of wildlife that are in the Arrington area, so to speak, and maybe the wetlands are the attraction, and then where are the wetlands? And it builds a case that helps to support wetlands and the wildlife that use them. And again, in our area, all the people that are on wells,
Right.
you have to have water for the wells. And wetlands really help to contribute to that, and good clean water. And carbon sink, another thing, I hadn't even mentioned that. There's a huge carbon sink in the wetlands. All the carbon that's stored, the peat mosses that are there that just pack down generation after generation after hundreds of years. There's a lot of carbon that's packed down into that below the mud.
Yeah. Oh, there's a spider on me. This is like...
You're attracting all kinds.
Yeah. You are the marsh. I am the marsh right now, yeah. It's a cute one at least, though. It's little and black. What are you doing, buddy? I'd rather have the little cute spiders than the flies. The flies are kind of irritating, but that's okay. Oh, and a beetle. Man, I am popular today. Look at that. It's the white shirt.
That's hilarious.
There you go, buddy.
It's funny because in Latin America, you always think about the workers wearing white clothes because it repels insects.
Oh,
but
does it?
Somehow that's not working.
It's not just for the heat? Yeah, no, this is not. Maybe I smell funny. Maybe it's the wool too. I just like smell like a sheep and they're all about it. I don't know. Well, thank you so much.
Well, you're most welcome.